Hi everybody and welcome back to the painting channel. Today I'm going to be practicing my skies. I'm going to show you how I painted this sky using washes, layering, wetting wet, many different techniques. So let's roll the intro. Let's see how we get on. Okay everybody, welcome back. Now as I said at the start, I am going to be practicing my skies with you today. I looked at this, I really enjoyed this image when I saw it as one of my references. It's of a lovely scene off of Whitstable with the end of a Thames barge match one summer, and I just wanted to practice my skies. Now recently I've been doing an awful lot of ink and washes, and I've continued that theme with this tutorial. But it's more about practicing the sky. It's all about how I painted this, and I want to show you how I created it using washes, lifting out, wetting wet, layering, so many different techniques to create this lovely sky effect. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Let's see how we get on. Okay, first and foremost, a little bit about the paper, and the paper is a £300 Saunders Waterford hot press paper. Very smooth and ideal for the process that I'm about to do for you today. Now it's a very low horizon. I could actually beef it up a little bit more than the photograph suggests, so I maybe just bring up a little bit of sky through here. Sorry, a little bit of land. Did I say sky? Very low sky. Let's just bring the horizon line through here. Very low in the picture plane, because the whole picture is about this wonderful sky. And if I can bring it off, I will be so pleased that I took the trouble to have a go at this one. Now along here there is several spits of land emanating from the side here and in front of us here, which I'm just going to suggest. Now there is a whole raft of tributaries running out from this area. So I'm going to put them in, and I want to, so there's a nice highlight on this beach through here that goes across there and just rise up a little bit. Then we have a little bit of tree line and different things from the land way off there, and then I'm just going to put the start of it. I don't quite know where this is. It could be the peninsula around Whitstable, Herne Bay Way. I'm not too sure. If you know the area or familiar with it, then please let me know in the comments. That would be fantastic. There we go. So that's simple, very simple as a structure. Now I'm going to put on some boats, because this was a barge match after all. Try and make that as straight as I can. Not doing a great job of that, but it's not about this. This is just supporting what's going to go on up here. So that's fine, not a problem with that. I just want to put in sort of some boats, some little vessels. These are Thames barges, of course. Now they have a very iconic shape, but you can't see too much of it at that distance. You just got that sort of very familiar shape in the water as they're cutting through. That sort of shape is very much Thames barge, and you've got spitzel ones and you've got those without, but you can have so many happening. Now this pencil is a heavy pencil and it hasn't got much of a point on it, but it's more than ample to do the job. So there we go. There's just two. Well, I'm going to use those as a basis, and I'm going to create more through here. So okay, so that's all I really need to do. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to put some not Indian ink, but some Archimentus ink on here, and I'm going to do an ink and wash. Now I love doing ink and washes, and this is a an up-to-date. I have several of them. This is one of two that I have in this shape and form. They're called Noodler pens, Noodler ink pens. They're great drawing pens because they have a very flexible nib. Start that again. They have a very flexible nib. And the thing about these is that you can put drawing ink in, indelible ink, and you can create some wonderful ink and washes using these pens. Now I have several of them, as I say. I use lots of other devices to draw with as well, and I do not just rely on these. But these are Noodler, and if you buy one, they're only about £10–15 for a pen. They're not expensive, and in fact every part of this is replaceable. Now I'm not sure of the supplies of these in the US. They are a US company, but I don't know where you get them from out there. But a simple sort of look around on the internet, you'll find them. But in this country, they're supplied by a company called Pure Pens. If you look up Pure Pens, I'll try and put the link in the description under the video, and you can find out all about these pens. Now what I'm going to simply doing is just literally putting in some of the information that I have already drawn. I'm just putting in or suggesting sort of the line of the sea and the horizon. Very funny angle to be drawing at this angle for the filming. It just makes quite a difficult angle to get the pen working, but it's okay, we'll get there. Just keep on drawing very simple lines through here. So here we go with our lovely Thames barge. Now I'm just making silhouette shapes, that's all I want to do. Just having them as ink, make sure that they do sort of stand out in the grand scheme of things. Another one here, we said nice mast, angle of that rear mast or sail, and then that rear sail all together. Lots and lots of little bits and pieces now you can put in. I'm going to put in the headland through here, and quite simple, just a single line, wobble it about a little bit. Wobble it, sorry, that's a technical term. Wobble it about a little bit and create the nice sort of feel of the trees and the headland and all that stuff that you can't really make too much information out, but it is all there. So I'm going to add a little bit more there. I think there's some more land there, and I'm going to put in another barge. I'm going to make this one a little bigger and suggest that it's just a little closer. Maybe it's tacking round, maybe got a nice sort of foremast on there, coming up there. And I'm really scribbling with this pencil, and I'm not trying to create perfection with this. I'm just simply trying to create the sense of our boats and our headland, so I can then concentrate on the sea. So I digressed a little bit then, but I know what I was trying to say. I was just trying to simply say that this part of the process is merely supporting everything else. There are lots of white vessels on this picture plane, and we may put a few in. Just putting a little bit of land that side. I can't quite make out everything that's going on here, but in the channel here we've got this sort of very light area, so I'm just going to put in another line, ink line, just to suggest that we've got a little bit of this shore going along here. Now I believe my pen is actually drying up a little bit, and that's why it's getting quite scratchy, which in its own right can make for quite an interesting set of marks and lines. And at the end of the day, we are literally mark making. We're not simply drawing, we are creating marks in our paper. Now I'm just going to change this pen. I have the other one that I use. I think it's possibly a different ink, but it's along the same sort of lines. It is a very dirty. I've never had one of these pens yet where the barrel just doesn't get messed up inside the cap, but it seems to do that all the time. Okay, I'm just going to come in here, and now be aware this paper is very thick and very soft as a result, and because of that you can gouge into the paper with one of these pens. Unlike that of a matchstick or something of that nature, it will gouge and mark, because at the end of that it's a very fine steel nib, and it's going to dig into the surface of your paper. So if you're doing a wash over it, it can suggest that you've got lots of indents and marks. It's almost like embossing. Put a little mark into there, and it's going to have A couple more vessels, maybe one that's a little closer, a little white sailed yacht in here. I see one in the picture, so put that in there. They are coming in at the end of the race. Now this was at the end of a beautiful day of racing for these vessels. I remember it very, very well, because as we came in, this sky just developed and developed and developed, and there was so much thunder and lightning at the end of it. It was amazing how much storm there was, but it was most enjoyable watching it develop. And I was on shore by that time. By the time I'm taking these, watching the last of these vessels coming home, as it were. And yeah, it was just a lovely sort of situation with the storm weather and the clouds. They were just beautiful. The sea became very emerald, and the clouds were just awesome. I digress. Putting a few more boats and vessels in. They're just mere suggestions, scribbles, nothing more. Some are going to be bigger and closer, and some of them are going to be much further away. Nice little white one. It's got a nice red sail there. I might put that in. Just going to beef up the shoreline along this part here. And then I've got to let everything here dry. I'm going to put a few masts that are down behind that area over there. Just suggest that we've got a very sea maritime type thing going on. We've got these, I don't know what these are called, I must figure that out. We've got these sort of spar type things. I'm not quite sure. If you know, again, leave the details in the comments and I'll read it and learn something from you guys. That'd be awesome. But there we go. Anyway, I think we're pretty much done with all the drawing, as I'm going to be here all night. We've got a nice collection of vessels. Maybe just one more for luck through here. Just a little bit of a shape, dark shape in there. That helps just edge up that piece of ground that's sticking out of the water. Maybe another one there. There we are. Okay, enough is enough. Let's put the lids back on these these pens, sorry, and let's let that dry out. We'll come back in a moment and we'll start the watercolor process. And I'm sort of very tempted, as the picture really does suggest like Roland Hilda to me. It so does, and that's probably why I loved it and picked it out of my collection of reference material. But I'm going to sort of do a little bit of that, and maybe keep some of the blue sky very blue, so that if I don't put the sienna over everything, I think it'll work out. I think we're going to have some fun with this. Anyway, once this is dry, then I can continue. I will leave this part of the painting right to the end. It's really all about getting this sky down and doing that some justice, and that's what the practice is about. The brushes I'm using are 3. These are a long filbert from a nice big one actually from Rosemary's Red Dot range, and her number 14 round, which is a stunner, and of course my number 18 Escoda Ultima. Sorry, not an Ultima, it's an Aquario. My apologies for that. I do get all these names mixed up, but I'm going to use this one to start with, this lovely Escoda, and I'm going to mix in a nice big wet watery wash, something like wet tea, and get enough of that working there. That's great. And I'm going to put that brush down, and I'm going to come in with that lovely super, look at that, as a beautiful wash brush. I love that. Let's show it to you, would be good. There we are. That's a lovely brush from Rosemary's Red Dot, and I am going to mix up a lovely Cobalt Blue into that. Slightly thicker mixture than this one, so we're going to put a lot of blue into that, and I'm going to come in with some Phthalo blue. So we're going to mix those two lovely blues together and make enough of that pigment. There we are. Okay, now that's primarily our 2 pigments that we're going to be using. I don't think I'm going to have enough of this one. Let's just make a lot more of that. Okay, I've made a good deal of that paint now, and I'm going to start using that to suggest some of our lovely clouds. Okay, let's crack on. So I'm just going to come here very, very loosely, and I'm not going to cover everything up. But areas that are going to have darker clouds on later on will have a lot of this colour already prepped on it. While I've got this going on, I'm just going to come in here now and paint some of my blue sky into that. See how this goes. This is practice. I really have no idea what's going to happen. I hope it will work out, but I really cannot tell you exactly if this is going to work out. It's a bit trial and error, but I think all paintings are really. You sort of go into it with a view of, you know what you're going to do, you know what you want, and sometimes that just works out beautifully. Other times it really just gives you a big jolt of realization that it's just not happening. So yeah, I think you've got to take that on the chin. If it doesn't, come out fighting for the next time. There we go. We've got a nice bit of blue sky at the bottom there, for which we can then lay some of this. I don't need any more blue, I don't think. I'm just going to come in before this all dries up on me and scratch in some of this lovely colour. Mix that into some of our blues into there. Hopefully this will be fine. I want to, while it's still damp, I'll bring some of that down into that blue so it has a chance to mingle and mix. I would love to get rid of that hard edge. I think it's going to cause me a problem. So I'm just going to come in there now. Unfortunately, I've wiped half my blue off. So I've got to remix very, very quickly if I want to save that piece of the sky. A little bit more of cobalt in there. Just pop some of that in back into play. Okay, that I hope won't cause me too many problems. If it does, I should have left well alone, shouldn't I? But it's all that learning curve that I was speaking about before. I'm going to let that settle down. I like what's happening here. Quite interesting. While we're doing that, though, I'm going to take some of this blue out of the mix, come in with some of my warmer neutral tint. This is a Schminker colour. Mix it with some of that blue, will not hurt. And while it is still in play with dampness, let's just put in a couple of little bits of this colour in here, which will help fuse and soften some of these lovely marks in our clouds as we're coming down. We don't want to lose all of the light. We do, however, and would, however, like to sort of get a little bit of a head start on some of this grayer matter that's coming through here, especially some of these down here where the clouds are sort of getting beefy further away from us. I just want to see if I can't bring some of that down, and this is where the tip of this lovely filbert comes in. Now most rounds have got beautiful tips as well, but I just like this one for this purpose. Nice sort of deep. I don't want that to come down too much further. I would, however, like to have a little bit more blue, a little bit more of the neutral tint in there, just so that it spreads but not takes over. I like the idea of that, and that sort of heavy base cloud right low down in our scene. I'm just going to drop in a couple little bit of extra darks as this comes through here. I like what's happening here. Very pleasurable to see. I like that. That's good. Maybe a little stronger on the blues, because I just feel that while this is damp, we can make something of this area in here so that it fuses. Now if it's coming down this way too fast, then just take your painting back this way a little bit, add in more by all means, but let it flow backwards this way, and I think that will have the desired effect for you. You don't, or you are not slave to having this just go one way. You can change the way this is and let that flow back down. Let's get that back in the shot. There we go. Okay, now to that end, I'm going to dry this brush off because that is coming down here much faster and further than I really wanted. I'm just going to lift some of that out very quickly, just soften the effect. There's nothing stopping us coming back in later. I am dampening off and taking the excess off as I keep doing this. There we go. What I might just do while we're waiting for this to dry off properly, is to literally tip the painting back this way. Okay, so what I've done is I've just tipped the painting back the reverse way so that all of this colour was running down. I've lightened it up, I've taken off bits that I want. Now I'm letting it run this way down or in upwards into the cloud space, and hopefully that will stop moving very soon. But I quite like the idea of this, where it started to move down prematurely. I lifted a bit, but there's still enough movement in there, and it looks like the rains are just starting to break away from the clouds at that point. What I do need to do now though is come back in here with a little bit more neutral tint, the redder version of the neutral tint, like that. I'm going to pick up some of that blue that's left off. This is drying off quite nicely, but I want to put in a nice sort of grey. There's this grey, and I'm using sort of a hard edge of this brush. Sort of, it's not a hard edge brush because it's a fill bed, of course, but it's just depositing lovely little suggestions of the cloud, and that's what I'm trying to aim for. I'm trying to create this soft, warm grey, as it were, of the cloud that's coming in to shot like that. Now, it's probably not the way that Mr. Hilda would have done it, but you know, I quite like the way that this is starting to appear. And that was the idea. It was to sort of have a bit of a practice, layer this up. It is drying, and I can't complain that that's drying quite nicely. But I would love to put in a little bit more through here sooner than waiting for it all to dry. But I do also know I've got to be a bit patient. So I'm going to come across here, and I'm going to put in that sort of extra cloud that's coming through here. Again, I'm trying to work as fast as I can. Oh, I do like this brush. You know, I actually haven't used this brush much in the past. I've used the Skoda a lot, and I have used other brushes, but this Filbert, gotta say, it is a stunning brush. I'm not trying to sell it to you, I'm just simply saying that it is a stunning brush. It's sort of, you can just play around with it. It's a little bit like a sword liner. To be fair, it's got a very similar action. So if you have a sword liner, then you can get away with using that. You do not need to rush out and buy one of these. But if you've got a little bit of money to spare in your pocket and you fancy having the edition, then yeah, I would rush out and get one. I might even have to get a second one, maybe a slightly smaller one. But they've got a lovely feel to them, nice action. Okay, so I'm using that cloud, it's coming across, and I am going to sort of play around with this shape and this form. Now the painting isn't totally dry, got to be said. It's still a little dampness in there, and it's allowing for the paint to be deposited like this, and it's still giving me a little bit of wiggle room to manipulate the edges ever so slightly. So I can bring it in there, I can tap a little bit of it off in there, that little bit of cloud that's moving from one area to another. I love this. I love what's going on with this. So I'm really pleased that not only did I find this photograph, but I've actually decided to film it and share the experience of painting this with you guys, just to see how it all turns out. It may still go to pot. I have no idea, but yeah, it won't be for the want of trying. And I think that's the message here, is trying. It's just experiencing, playing around and suggesting all these ways of creating clouds and skies for your work in the future. And it's a little bit hard up here. I want to try and soften some of this. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit more water. Got to be careful now. I'm heading into a little bit of dangerous territory. Just going to take the worst off and just bring that up there. Not sure if that was the wisest of moves, but I wanted to soften the edge, and I couldn't really do it without playing around with that. I'm going to just tap out some of that area just to soften that into its background a little more. Very hard lump of paint got into the top of the painting there. Just softening that off there, and I can then come back in and just reinforce one or two areas like that. I need to lose that, so I'm going to have to do that there, just to create that edge. Now we could and probably will get a cauliflower somewhere in here. Just going to dampen it off and make it a little bit mottled so that you can then come back in and create. It's a little bit overworked, but if it does the job and keeps us out of trouble, then it's well worth that extra little bit of effort. Okay, there we go. We're going to leave that as is, and we're going to move forward. Some more cobalt blue and a little bit more tint into that. And we're going to look at this shape down here. We're going to add into some of this here. Nice little bit on top. Loosen it up, soften it up while we've got the dampness in the paper. And the nice thing about neutral tint, the nice thing about this type of paper is it is extremely forgiving and will put up with quite a bit of punishment. Unlike some of the cold press papers, it doesn't give up the surface too easily, which is really useful, got to be said. Just going to soften with a little brush, a little sort of round brush, just to have a little less water in the brush as I apply it. Because every time I clean this one in water, so it just soaks up half the pan of water in the pot, as it were. Okay, I'm just going to come through here. Going to suggest that there, and now create a few more layers, a little bit more of the blue, cobalt and tint again, just to come down here and drop some of these layers into the paint, trying to suggest that extra weight of cloud that's running through our scene and out through there. I don't want too much water. This is the thing, I've got to be careful. I've got to try and limit anything here, because if there's still dampness it will spread, but I want to keep it nice and soft as well. There you go. I think we got away with that. Just going to soften that. I know it's quite a hard edge, but I want to soften it to the background there, and then I want to come in with a little bit more blue into my mix. Still using and still staying with cobalt. Just want to come in here and just make that slightly bluer through there, like that, and maybe a smaller one through there. Let them join up if they want to. Clean that brush out, just gently tease out some of these so that it sort of just starts to blend a little bit more. There we go. I think we got away with that. Just one or two maybe. Just little taps of colour down here, just suggesting that we've got some of those clouds way off in the distance there. Starting to build, starting to form and bubble up, as it were. And that adds scale to the whole of the scene. That, okay, I'm not too pleased with that, but it's not the end of the world either. It's actually quite an interesting little statement. And sometimes your paintings will have these extra little bits in that you could not foresee, or if you could foresee, you couldn't stop. And hopefully they don't detract too much from the work that you've created. So anyway, there we are. So we have our cloud. We can bring that back into that area while we've still got some dampness. Soften some of this here because I don't want to have sharp, funny edges on there. So I'm just going to let that sort of disappear, as it were, into there. Soften that right up into that part. Thing about this, when you're drying and cleaning and scrubbing, I go through so much tissue paper, got to be said. I ought to be looking at maybe using a piece of something rag or something, cotton rag. I have got it and I do use it sometimes, just forget that it's there. Alright, I'm quite happy about that. Now I'm still using the same two colours, basically neutral tint with some cobalt blue. Maybe a little bit more cobalt blue, there we are. Maybe a bit more tint. Now lots more water. And we're just going to come in with a very wet, weakish solution as we come up in here to form this top part here. of this cloud, just scratching around with it like that. Quite like that. I'll soften some of that. Okay, let that disappear off the side. This has created a bit of a hard edge. I might just try and ease that out. Again, every time you go back into something you've got and done and left as a really nice passage, then you suddenly start disturbing it, and that's when you are in danger. I'm just literally dry brushing over the top of that just to make that sort of dissipate a little bit. I actually made it worse, if anything, so I'm going to have to go back over and just play around with that area, just soften it up a little bit more, create a bit more of a cloud through here, which I think there is one in the photo to a degree, but not quite as I had intended it to be. I think we get there. Okay, just trying to leave these edges out of it and try and lessen the impact of some of them. So I'm doing it again. I'm disturbing it, and it's going to cause a problem for me. I know that. So I've got to play around with this just one more time. Just try and suggest why that these extra marks are here without it looking awful. That could dry up great. It could dry up badly. But as we said right from the start, that this is a practice piece. We did say that this was a practice piece. So that's it. Look at it as a practice piece. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't work, then do another one. I'm just chapping in some sort of clouds that are sort of rolling through the scene at this point. Just subtly another layer. So we've gone wet in wet clouds, we've done dry brush clouds, we've done layered clouds, we've done pretty much every type of application in this one painting. But that doesn't matter. Every brush mark that I make, every brush mark that you make is a subtle stepping stone in the right direction to getting everyone right in the future. And even then, it's never a guarantee that you're going to make every painting a stunning piece. It is merely you try every time to create what you're looking for, and hopefully it works out, but it doesn't always work out. I think we always have to have a realistic idea of expectations. I want to go back with that other brush because that really is got a lot of water in it. I'm just going to soften that out. Yeah, that's what I should have used just now on the other part. Never mind. It's still good, still working. We've got a nice set of clouds working away. I'll put a bit more neutral tint there now, and less blue, a little bit more neutral tint now. What I'm going to do is just come into a couple of these areas, just play around with that neutral tint and give myself a little extra warmth into some of the base parts of these clouds. And it is just layers now. Maybe a little bit more pigment, a little less water in certain parts. There we are. I'm going to get very, very thick with paint there if I'm not careful. A hard edge there, and I don't mind hard edges, but I prefer soft ones where I can. And sometimes I see one that it frightens me. I got to admit, it does frighten me. It's just, you know, you see it and think, oh really? Oh, it's a bit too strong, it's a little bit too hard. And you got to be careful, because it's at that point, and I've shown you so many times where I've decided to change something and really wish I hadn't done any of that and just left it. But you make the decision and you have to live with it. And if you can get yourself out of trouble, all the better for it. If you can't, you have to start again. Anyway, I think that's my cloud done. I'm quite happy with the way that looks. I might just bring a little bit of colour through here, just as that little skippy bit of cloud that runs through that bit of light of the cloud, white cloud behind, like that. Let that roll up into there, and then just take off the excess. That's what I want to do. Now I consider this part of the operation overworking it, to be quite honest, because I didn't need to go into all of that, and at the same time as I did just now in this area, run the risk, as I did there, of creating something a little unsightly. But like I also said, you do it, you got to live with it. I think we're going to leave it there and live with it. All right, I'm quite happy with that. Let's just move on to the final part. Let's just put in a lovely shoreline, and I've got another one of Rosemary's brushes. I think it's one of Rosemary's brushes here. Yes, it is. Just a smaller round brush, nice point to it. Just mix up very quickly a little bit of phthalo green in there and a little bit of neutral tint into that as well. Makes a very dull greeny grey colour. I'm just going to run that through here, which is our distance shoreline through there, and within the lines if you want to, don't worry about it if you don't. It's just merely underpinning that beautiful sky and gives the sky purpose for being there. It just registers the fact that we've got land here, and there should be a bit of sky above. Gives this, there we go, a little bit on that side. Okay, I'm just going to come in with some lovely turquoise green colour, and the sea sort of radiates that lovely turquoisey green. Tap of Aureolin, just make it a little greener. And I'm just going to come in here and put in that suggestion of that sea. Now I'm going to leave a few of these boats, if I can, to suggest a little bit of white around some of them. Just like that. So, and that doesn't matter if you're absolutely spot on with it or not, really. It's just leaving a little bit around just to say that we've got some white boats out there in this sort of emeraldy sea created by the light in the clouds and the oncoming or onset of a storm. Like that. It's very dry brush. There's very little paint coming off of here. It's barely staining the surface, but I'm not worried about that. It is, as I say, just a sea. And I'm going to put in a little bit of my burnt umber, a little bit of Indian red, maybe a little more Indian red, and I'm just going to come through here with what purports to be the mud that I am behind or on the bank of. That just gives me a very purposeful piece of foreshore. Leave that to dry out and then just come back in. Now I did lose a little bit of light on there. Some of that blue crept in and I can't get it out. It's there to stay. So I have to learn to live without that and just come forward. A little bit of Payne's grey, a little bit of that Sienna. That's very weak solution. I'm just going to come in here and suggest that bit of the shore running through there. Now it's going to bleed with the green where it meets. Not too worried about that. A bit more of that mix of the dark with the Sienna and the Payne's grey in there. And there is quite a bit of dark on the top, so I'm going to run that through there. And that comes down to the shoreline there. Alright, so there's not a lot more I'm going to be doing. I'm quite happy. I just wanted to register the ground, and we can put white in if you wanted to, body colour, but it really was about this. Okay, so what picture of the sea wouldn't be complete without putting in a few goals, and so I'm just going to put in a few little suggestions of goals there. Not too much, don't want too many. Try and keep them odd in number if you can. I don't like those ones for sure. They look like, I don't know what. They don't look like goals. I'm going to leave them to dry out, and I might just go back in with something else on those ones. But the rest of them are fine. Just going to bring a few up here. There you go. Alright, leave it at that. Don't go too mad with it. You've got a few birds in there. Let that dry off. I think it's possibly because there's a bit of moisture in here. Look at that there. Oh, what a mistake. Well, it is a mistake if you don't want it there. And sometimes these cauliflower things can work for you. Okay, but I'm not going to try and attempt to change that. It is what it is. Hi everybody, I really hope you enjoyed that. I had a heap of fun painting it. I always enjoy experimentation. I always enjoy trying to pit myself with the colours and trying to render the subject matter that I intended to start with. And you can only do that with practice, practice, practice. And they say that practice makes perfect. Well, I don't agree with that. I actually think that practice makes progress. And if you keep that in the back of your mind, every time you try something, whether it's a tree painting or whether it's a sky or a landscape or aerial perspective, doesn't matter what it is, every time you do a practice piece, you're learning something to take on into your new or next painting. So what I might say is, don't forget the reference for this will be over on my Patreon for you to download for free. You do not need to be a patron to do that. Just go over there, look for it, download it, have a go at it, and put it up onto the Painting with Paul apps page over on Facebook. Lots of people joining that, getting involved with that, and it'd be great to see your efforts from my videos over on that platform. That'd be fantastic. But while you're on my Patreon, why not take a look around? There's well over 150 odd videos there, fully narrated, full length, for you to get your teeth into and enjoy and learn something from, and carry that information on with you in your next painting projects and beyond that time. There's also a lovely community of patrons where you can ask questions, showcase your work, and get help from me more directly. So that would be fantastic if you take a look at that. Love to welcome you on board as my latest patron in the future. Fantastic. But if you have enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up. Only by interacting and supporting this channel, by adding comments, by sharing to your friends, or subscribing to the channel, will you help it grow and reach a much greater audience. And people out there like you want to learn to paint, want to learn to use watercolors. They don't yet know who I am or anything about my channel, but with your help, with your subscription, with your comments and your thumbs up and all these things, it really does help push the channel further, and a lot more people get to see the content that I'm creating for free for you all to enjoy. So if you're not a subscriber, and only about half of you who watch these videos are actually subscribed, please give it a subscription. Costs you nothing, but it really does help promote the channel. And I thank you very, very much. And lastly, before I go, let me just thank all my patrons. Without you guys, nothing would really happen. Your support, your help, your financial support each and every month really does go an awful long way to help me continue to create content, not just for you, but also for YouTube as well. So your help and your support is invaluable. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. With that all said and done, I'm going to love you and leave you guys, and I'm just going to get on with the... I'll start that bit again. I am just going to get on and get ready for the next painting. I look forward to your company next Friday at 3 p.m. Until that time, take care, stay safe wherever you are. All the best. Enjoy your painting. Bye-bye. We're going to practice some skies, so let's start that again then. This is about an ink and wash. No, it's more about the skies. Start again then. A scene of Whitstable and of a barge match. Start again. Oh, here we go. Scene is a lovely estuary scene off of the that place. Whitstable. Start again then. the ink and wash for you where